Insurgent Mexico by John Reed. Pancho Villa dollars, paper money from silver. Circa 1913. It has often been said that Villa succeeded because he had educated advisors. As a matter of fact, he was almost alone. What advisors he had spent most of their time answering his eager questions and doing what he told them. I used sometimes to go to the governor's palace early in the morning and wait for him in the governor's chamber. About 8 o'clock, Silvestre Terrazas, the Secretary of State, Sebastian Vargas, the State Treasurer, and Manuel Choa, the inventor, would arrive, very bustling and busy, with huge piles of reports, suggestions, and decrees which they had drawn up. Villa himself came in about 8:30, threw himself into a chair, and made them read out loud to him. Every minute he would inject a remark, correction, or suggestion. Occasionally he waved his finger back and forth and said, "No serve." When they were all through, he began rapidly and without a halt to outline the policy of the state of Chihuahua, legislative, financial, judicial, and even educational. When he came to a place that bothered him, he said, "How do they do that?" And then, after it was carefully explained to him, why. Most of the acts and usages of government seemed to him extraordinarily unnecessary and snarled up. For example, his advisers proposed to finance the revolution by issuing state bonds bearing 50 to 40% interest. He said, "I can understand why the state should pay something to people for the rent of their money, but how is it just to pay the whole sum back to the 3 or 4 times over?" He couldn't see why rich men would be granted huge tracts of land and poor men should not. The whole complex structure of civilization was new to him. You had to be a philosopher to explain anything to Villa, and his advisers were only practical men. Then there was the financial question. It came to Villa in this way. He noticed all of a sudden that there was no money in circulation. The farmers who produced meat and vegetables refused to come to the city markets and anymore because no one had any money to buy from them. The truth was that those possessing silver or Mexican banknotes buried them in the ground. Chihuahua, not being a manufacturing center, and the few factories there having closed down, there was nothing which could be exchanged for food. So, like a blight, the paralysis of the production of food began all at once, and actual starvation stared at the town populations. I remember hearing vaguely of several highly elaborate plans for the relief of this condition put forward by Villa's advisers. He advised them, "Why, if all they need is money, let's print some." So they inked up the printing press in the basement of the governor's palace and ran off 2,000,000 pesos on strong paper, stamped with the signatures of government officials and with Villa's name printed across the middle in large letters. The counterfeit money, which afterward flooded El Paso, was distinguished from the original by the fact that the names of the officials were signed instead of stamped. This first issue of currency was guaranteed by absolutely nothing but the name of Francisco Villa. It was issued chiefly to revise the petty internal commerce of the state so that the poor people could get food, and yet almost immediately it was brought by the banks of El Paso at 18 to 19 cents on the dollar because Villa guaranteed it. Of course, he knew nothing of the accepted ways of getting his money into circulation. He began to pay the army with it. On Christmas Day, he called the poor people of Chihuahua together and gave them $15 apiece outright. Then he issued a short decree ordering the acceptance of his money at par throughout the state. The succeeding Saturday, the marketplaces of Chihuahua and the other nearby towns swarmed with farmers and with buyers. Villa issued another proclamation, fixing the price of beef at 7 cents a pound, milk at 5 cents a quart, and bread at 4 cents a loaf. There was no famine in Chihuahua, but the big merchants who had timidly timidly reopened their stores for the first time since his entry into Chihuahua, placarded their goods with two sets of price marks, one for Mexican silver money and bank bills, and the other for via money. He stopped that by another decree ordering 60 days imprisonment for anyone who discriminated against his currency. But still, the silver and bank bills refused to come out of the ground, and these via needed to buy arms and supplies for his army. So he simply proclaimed to the people that after the 10th of February, Mexican silver and bank bills would be regarded as counterfeit, and that before that time they could be exchanged for his own money at par in the state treasury, and held on. But the large sums of the rich still eluded him. Most of the financiers declared that it was all a bluff and held on. But lo, on the morning of February 10th, a decree was pasted on the walls all over Chihuahua City, announcing from that time on all Mexican silver and banknotes were counterfeit and could not be exchanged for via money in the treasury, and anyone attempting to pass them was liable to 60 days in the penitentiary. A great howl went up, not only from the capitalists, but from the shrewd misers of distant villages. About 2 weeks after the issue of this decree, I was taking lunch with Villa in the house which he had confiscated from Manuel Gomez and used as his official residence. A delegation of 3 peons in sandals arrived from a village in Tarahumare to protest against the counterfeit decree. But, mi general, said the spokesman, we did not hear the decree until today. We have been using bank bills and silver in our village. We had not seen your money, and we did not know. You have a good deal of money, interrupted Villa suddenly. Yes, mi general. 3 or 4 or 5,000, perhaps? More than that, mi general. Senors, Villa squinted at them ferociously, samples of my money reached your village within 24 hours after it was issued. You decided that my government would not last. You dug holes under your fireplaces and put the silver and banknotes there. You knew of my first proclamation a day after it was posted on the streets in Chihuahua, and you ignored it. The counterfeit decree you also knew as soon as it was issued. You thought there was always time to change if it became necessary. And then you got frightened, and you three, who have more money than anyone else in this village, got on your mules and rode down here. Senores, your money is counterfeit. You are poor men. Valgame Dios, cried the oldest of the three, sweating profusely. But we are ruined, mi general. I swear to you we did not know. We would have accepted. There is no food in the village. The general-in-chief meditated for a moment. I will give you one more chance, he said. Not for you, but for the poor people of your village who can buy nothing. Next Wednesday at noon, bring all your money, every cent of it, to the treasury, and I will see what can be done. To the perspiring financiers who waited hat in hand out in the hall, the news spread by word of mouth. And Wednesday at high noon, one could not pass the treasury door for the eager mob gathered there. That is another important story from history. That is what happens when a warlord takes control of the government and the issuing of money. And a lot can be said about money, a lot of adages and metaphors, but having good, honest money is a sure protection.